every one of us has a purpose, right? All of us collectively have a collective purpose to make the world a better place, etc., etc., to bring divinity in the world, uplift the world, make the world a brighter and warmer place. And every one of us has an individual purpose within that, a unique part and role that we play with our own personality, with our own gifts, with our own circumstances. Before we head into the final stretch, a quick reminder, if you didn't yet, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and then the notification bell so that you'll see future videos when they come out. So, every one of us has a purpose, right? Collectively, we have a broad purpose. And then within that collective purpose, every one of us has a unique set of talents, of gifts, of circumstances, of experiences, personality, etc. And all of the things that make us who we are come together to determine the unique contribution that each of us has to offer the world, the universe, each other, ourselves. So every one of us has a purpose, and there are many layers to purpose. Ultimately, our purpose boils down to making the world a better place. And this includes, very simply, it means acts of kindness, being productive, getting things done, making things happen, improving our lived experiences, our own lived experience, the lived experience of people around us. And every time we do a good thing, every time we help someone out, we do someone a favor, we do the right thing, we do a mitzvah, we study some Torah, whatever it is, all these things, every time we do it, we introduce purpose and meaning into the universe. We introduce divinity into the universe. We introduce divinity into the world, into ourselves, into our environment, our surroundings. Now, where things get interesting and where we need to flip a switch maybe in the way we see things is that it doesn't always work the way that it would seem at first glance or the way that it would seem intuitively. Right? We think that when we achieve a measurable outcome, we see a difference that we made in the world, that makes a difference. And because we made a difference, we introduced divinity into the world. We made the world more meaningful and introduced purpose into the world, into ourselves. But it's not our ability to introduce purpose and meaning into divinity and to make the world a more godly place, a more divine place, a warmer and brighter place, doesn't just depend on our achieving tangible, measurable outcomes. It depends just on us doing the right thing in the moment. If we are doing the right thing that we are supposed to be doing, that's the right thing to do. And that's the realization of our souls and of our purpose here. And even if we don't see anything positive that comes out of it, and even if afterwards it seems like maybe we could have done something better, and it seems like it may have been a waste of time, if at the time it was the right thing to do based on what we knew at the time, we were doing the right thing. And we were introducing divinity into the world. We were making the world a more godly place. We were bringing godliness and divinity into our souls, into our bodies, into our environments, into our surroundings. Because if we were doing the right thing, we were acting upon the guidance, the instruction of the Creator as we understood it at that time. We did what we felt we were supposed to be doing. That means by definition it was the right thing to do, which means that by definition it was meaningful and it had a purpose and it did bring godliness and divinity into our bodies and into our lives and into our surroundings. So even if we're doing something, we stuck doing something that doesn't seem to be immediately constructive, or sometimes we do something, it reminds me of a story many years ago when I was, it must have been 10, 12 years ago probably, when I was in the summertime, I was traveling around the Midwest as a roving rabbi, North Dakota, South Dakota. And this wasn't a summer trip, this was a Hanukkah trip also in the Midwest. And I was planning public Hanukkah lightings with a friend in different cities. We drove around every day, every night we did a different city across 3 different states. We did one in Iowa and South Dakota, North Dakota. And for months before, I was working around the clock. I would sit in front of a computer and with a phone for 10 hours straight, day after day, trying to figure this out, trying to figure out venues and permits and communicate with people and get high profile people to attend to help bring a crowd to make the events. lively and successful and bring a lot of people so more people could come and enjoy the experience and benefit from the light of the Hanukkah menorah. And there was this one town where I was working, and we almost had a venue, and I'd spent probably 2 days, literally 14 hours over 2 days trying to get this venue, and we were almost there, about to secure the venue, and then the whole thing fell through and had to start again. And I remember the frustration I felt at that point, that things were getting pushed off and that so much time, 14 hours of time, had just been wasted on a dead end. But the moment I stopped and I said, hang on a second, why am I doing this? I'm doing this because this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm doing this to bring the light of the Hanukkah menorah into the world. I'm doing this to bring the light of the Creator into the world, to make the world more divine. Why? Because when I do the thing I'm supposed to do, that brings divinity into the world. Well, for the last 14 hours, I was supposed to be working on this venue, even though it didn't work out and it didn't seem to be bringing me closer to my goal. It actually did, because now I know that that venue's not happening, and if I hadn't spent the last 14 hours working on this venue, I'd still have to spend another 14 hours on this venue to realize that it's not going to work to get to the next one. So even though it seems like it was a waste of time, it was a part of the process. If I was doing something that I needed to be doing and it was the right thing to do at that time, it was constructive in and of itself. That those 14 hours of time I spent on the computer online and making phone calls. I was making phone calls to lawyers who argued in the Supreme Court of the United States. I was making phone calls to the mayor and phone calls to who knows who. And all of that brought me to a dead end. That wasn't wasted time. It was a necessary part of the process, which means I was doing what I needed to be doing. And by doing that, every step of the process is an act of doing the right thing. Every step of being involved and working on the process is an act of bringing divinity into the world, bringing the warmth and light of the Creator into my soul, into my body, into my environment. So it wasn't a waste of time. It felt like it until I stopped and thought and reframed the way I saw it. And all of a sudden, I had just spent 14 hours realizing the purpose of my existence. I had spent 14 hours bringing divinity into the world, into the computer that I use, into the phone, into the people I spoke to, etc. Uplifting the world, uplifting people around the country by means of involving them in this process. So the moment we understand that every part of the process, if it's a necessary part of the process, even if we don't see the purpose in it, but if it was unavoidable and it was a necessity at the time, that means it was a part of the process to get there, which means that it was inherently an act of introducing divinity, and it had meaning, it did have meaning, and it did have purpose, and we were uplifting ourselves and our souls and our bodies and our environments and the universe when we did it. And the moment we see things that way, we actually can, in a very real way, live a life in which there is no time wasted. Because, step number one, remember I mentioned earlier, was actually like finding the things that really are avoidable wastes of time, identifying them and eliminating them. And then the next step is to change the way we see things so that we understand and realize that the things that are unavoidable are not waste. They are in the moment, they are bringing meaning into our lives, bringing purpose into our lives, and into all the things around us that are involved in the process. So it's not a waste. And if we can see it that way, we can feel that fulfillment and that deep sense of meaning and purpose and the satisfaction of being involved in something that's constructive and something that's doing the right thing and something that's making a difference in the moment. We don't even have to wait to get to the outcome, because it's meaningful and it has purpose immediately in the moment. And all of this comes back to, the reason I'm talking about this week is because in this week's Torah portion, we have the story of Avraham Avinu, Abraham, the first Jew. And after his circumcision, he was in a lot of pain, understandably. And on the third day, after he'd had a few days to sort of experience the aftermath and to begin his recovery, on the third day, in this week's Torah portion, we're told that God visited Abraham, and with God's visiting and with the angels who visited also on that same third day, that brought Abraham a lot of healing and reduced his pain and, made him feel a lot better. And there's a lot of discussion around the fact that God waited until the third day to visit Avram. He could have visited sooner. He could have come right away. Why did he have to wait until the third day? And one of the reasons is that the natural process is an important part of everything we do. God put us here in this world to struggle through the natural process. And sometimes the natural process seems inefficient and it seems like there's a lot of waste, but if that's the way that we need to do it, then there is purpose and meaning in every step of the way. Because clearly the Creator could have put us in a world in which we didn't need to go through these processes and we could achieve things just like that, but the Creator chose not to, because that would have wasted opportunities to bring purpose and meaning into the world by means of all of these little steps along the way. And the process leading up to something and the aftermath and the process leading out of something, if every good thing that we do, everything that surrounds it, the process leading up to it, the build up, the preparation, the aftermath, all of that has meaning and purpose as part of this event. And the aftermath and the discomfort that Avram felt after his circumcision was a part of the mitzvah, or was part, and it had meaning and it had purpose. And as uncomfortable as it was, and a lot of times in life there are things that bring us tremendous meaning that are painful and uncomfortable, and we don't wish it on ourselves or anyone else, but sometimes that's the way it goes. And by unnaturally taking away Avram's pain, if God had visited Avram on the first or second day and taken away his opportunity, it's kind of ironic to use the word opportunity, but would taken away his experience of that pain and discomfort for those 2 days, he would have taken away Avram's opportunity to bring purpose and meaning into the pain and into those moments in time in the natural aftermath of this mitzvah, the natural aftermath of fulfilling this directive of the Creator and entering into this covenant. And that's why God waited until the third day to visit, to allow Avram the opportunity to really introduce the full measure of purpose and meaning into his experience. Because the aftermath, just like the preparation, also has its own purpose and meaning if it's a part of the process. And really, I think that this to me, this really, really changes things, because if we can appreciate the value and the purpose of the fact that we can introduce divinity into the world, we can make the world a warmer and brighter and more godly place through a myriad of different activities, as long as if they're part of the process towards something that we're supposed to be working on, it actually really, it broadens and multiplies our opportunities to bring purpose and meaning into the world by a factor of who knows what, right? How much of our time do we actually spend on doing things that we see the immediate value in? And how much of the time do we spend preparing and setting things up and packing things up and cleaning up afterwards? The vast majority of our time is spent in the preparation and the aftermath. If we can realize that that value is also equal value and immediate purpose and meaning in the lead up and the aftermath, all of a sudden, every moment of our life can be immediately satisfying and rewarding, and can give us that sense of purpose and meaning and the deep fulfillment and satisfaction that comes with it. And, that's a really... It's a really important shift in the way we look at things, because it changes. It can really, honestly, it can give us the ability, simply put, it gives us the ability to feel deeply fulfilled and with a deep sense of meaning and purpose every waking second of the day. And even if we're involved in things that seem mundane and that we'd rather not have to do, and we don't see the connection to purpose and meaning, the purpose and meaning is there, and we can see it immediately and understand that if it's part of the process, it has purpose. If it's part of the process, we're introducing divinity into ourselves and our environments as we do it. And it really does, honestly, give us the ability to live a life without a second of wasted time, ever. If you haven't yet, click on the subscribe button, then click on the notification bell to see future videos. And please, again, share the link wherever you share things on social media, Facebook, wherever it is, WhatsApp groups, WhatsApp status, to help this message reach more people. This has been the Bites of Judaism podcast. This podcast has been made possible by Mr. and Mrs. David and Malki Smetana. If you found it valuable, please leave a 5-star rating and a review. It really does help it reach more people. And tell your friends about it. If you haven't yet, you can subscribe on all the major podcast platforms at rabbiglick.link/podcast. To dedicate a future episode of the podcast, send an email to podcast@rabbiglick.com. See you next time.